Honestly, it kind of feels overwhelming to be a developer right now. Everything is just AI, AI, AI. All these posts are constantly telling us that we're going to lose our jobs, or best case scenario, going to be reviewing code all day. But every time I actually use these tools, I'm just confused and disappointed. Like it works for everyone except for me. And regardless of whether or not the hype is real, the layoffs definitely are. Applying for jobs is just impossible right now. And it's non-stop. Every post, every video, everywhere you look. Like, I get it. It's completely changing our industry. But I'm just tired. And with social media, it's even harder to tell what's real or not. It's too easy to get stuck in an echo chamber one way or another. All I want to know is how to do my job most effectively. Whether that's managing AI agents or just doing what I'm already doing or somewhere in the middle. I don't want the clickbaity, trendy headline. I just want to know what works right now. In this video, I want to take a pragmatic look at software development using AI agents. I want to talk about the principles that two of my favorite engineers use to get the most out of this tool without going overboard. And we're also going to talk about the nuance of AI tools, what problems they solve well and the ones they don't. What most clickbait headlines miss is that AI tools are on a spectrum. Some uses a slam dunk wins, but as the complexity increases, the consistency of these tools decreases. I've always thought that AI agents were genuinely useless. The title on this previous video I made is not clickbait. That is actually the point I am making. But since then, I've realized that claiming AI agents are completely useless is irresponsible. It's not as irresponsible as claiming that coding is solved, but it's still untrue, and it creates more confusion in an already confusing situation. The truth is more nuanced than that, and trying to figure it out amongst the sea of opinions is tiring. So these past few weeks, I've drunk as much Kool-Aid as I can get my hands on. I watched all the most popular AI talks from last year. That includes the overly popular AWS reInvent one about future developers. It includes this Anthropic talk about how to make agents, and the Anthropic talk 8 months later about why you shouldn't make agents. It includes this talk about spec-driven development, and this talk about research plan implement, which is just spec-driven development with extra steps. And it includes discussions with real developers who are actually building using these tools. And I dove headfirst into agentic coding. I used these workflows to try and understand where we are actually at. And the first point I want to make is that both the hype and the hate are wrong. And I can prove it in a way that's not original but still important. If coding was solved and AI could do everything that developers can do, then we would be seeing much more complex products consistently released. I'm personally hanging out for a rewrite of After Effects, but that's just not happening. On the other hand, there definitely are more software products being released, and a lot of people are clearly creating products that are outside of their usual capability. This wouldn't be happening if AI agents were useless. This means that AI agents are somewhere in the middle, which is kind of obvious, but I think it still needs to be said. Using these two observations, we can set an upper and a lower limit for when it's effective to use AI. It would be ineffective and maybe even irresponsible to use AI to write production code that you don't understand. I'm not saying that it will never work, but long term, the implementation issues and lack of understanding isn't worth it. On the other hand, it would also be irresponsible to not use AI if you're doing rapid prototyping for something that you're going to throw away anyway. This is assuming that prices stay relatively consistent, which is a big assumption, but one I need to make if I want to be pragmatic about what I should do today. Everything in between this upper and lower bound is more ambiguous. The further right you go on this diagram, the less consistent AI tooling becomes. And there's a point where the cost of using AI outweighs the benefits long term. I call this the critical thinking line, and I would put it right about here. For example, code review. It's not always a no-brainer to use AI for code review, but personally, I make a lot of stupid mistakes, and I know the last thing people want to do is review my PRs. So I put code review right about here on the scale of AI effectiveness. There is a chance that it causes unnecessary noise, but not a very high one, and it works pretty consistently. Another step further is refactoring, or very manual boring tasks. The tasks where you're editing 50 different files, making slight corrections to all of them that the LSP can't really do. My favorite one is deleting unused code. Agents are less consistent with this. Sometimes they will do something unexpected. But this is the kind of task that is perfect to at least attempt with AI before wasting the next 4 hours of your life. On the other side of the spectrum is debugging. Once again, I'm not saying that it will never work, but just by nature of how they work, LLMs are inconsistent when it comes to debugging. In the middle here is where it gets a bit more interesting, but also where your workflow is the most important. When I was taking a deep dive into AI, there were two developers that I really resonated with, Mitchell Hashimoto and Dax Rad. They are both entrepreneurs who have a history of building quality software. They are both currently working on very public projects, and they responsibly use AI to improve their product while maintaining a high standard. I learned a lot about AI development by studying these two people and by pairing that with my own learning. A lot of these talks I watched are about context management for AI. They like to call it context engineering, but only Hashimoto talked about context management for humans.
I think my engineering has changed where I try to identify the tasks that don't require thinking and the tasks that do require thinking and just delegate the work to an agent. Sometimes it just feels productive to do the non-thinking tasks and you're like, yeah, I did a lot today. You got this. But a lot of times I just try to just delegate that out. There's a lot of people that say like you think less. And I think if you use the tools wrong, you do think less because you just like launch an agent and I don't know, go watch YouTube or scroll social media or something. But if you instead view it as a way to choose what you think about, then I think that you don't need to sacrifice that thinking. But I think the problem is the majority of the population probably won't do that.
Regardless of its performance, conceptually, there are two ways to use AI. You can use it to do the same amount of work but with less effort, or do more work with the same effort. It all depends on how you manage your context. If you kick off an agent tasked with figuring out the core problem while you watch YouTube, then the AI will produce terrible code and you'll be left feeling unfulfilled as you review that terrible code. What Hashimoto does is the other way around. He works on the critical part, the part that needs to be correct, and he delegates the other tasks to the agent. And he has notifications disabled. The agent never decides when to interrupt him. He decides when he's ready to go check on the result. He spends more time in the flow state and less time worrying about less important details. I would put research and discovery right about here on the scale. It's less consistent than spikes or code review, but it can save you a lot of time and context in the right situation. The best case is when you can discover solutions that you didn't know existed. There are so many different tools and technologies in software that sometimes there is a solution you just don't even know about. Imagine how hard it would be to build concurrent systems if you didn't know that database locks existed. Using AI for research can help cover these blind spots consistently, especially because at this stage you can still throw away all the hallucinations. Planning takes this one step further and actually uses AI to generate a plan for your changes. This can be helpful, but it's definitely moving into the orange territory of, should I really be using AI for this? Don't outsource critical thinking. Once you have a solution in mind, it can be hard to see the problem from a different point of view. So it's not always a great idea to get a random next word guesser to come up with your first solution.
But when I'm like working on something new or something challenging, or I'm working on a new design for something, me typing out code is the process by which I'm figuring out what we should even be doing. I have a really tough time just sitting there and like writing out a giant spec on here's exactly how the feature should work. I like writing out types. I like writing out how some of the functions might play together. I like playing with folder structure to see what the different concepts should be. And this is all stuff that I think most programmers have always done.
Daxrad works on an AI product, and he still admits that it's important for him to understand the domain, to think about the types and functions. This is still how we solve problems, where we build scalable systems that make sense and work well. I think in some situations, it can be helpful to generate a plan while you do something else. But you really have to be mindful, since this is a point where reviewing what the AI does can start to cost you more time than it would have taken to just think about it yourself. This becomes even more important when using AI to write code, which I actually think is okay in scenarios where you already know the shape of the output. This is usually when you're implementing a pattern that already exists in the codebase, or implementing a scenario for a problem that is already well understood. But to use AI in this way, you have to care more about craftsmanship than before, not less. Your codebase should be a perfect example of what you want future code to look like. You have to be strict about what is merged, especially in simple code, because that's what allows AI to generate the simple code for you in the future. Two simple patterns that make this workflow easier are domain-driven design and unit testing. You want to build around a domain with a hexagonal architecture so that each component has clear separation boundaries. This makes changes smaller scope and reduces the risk of hallucinations leaking between boundaries. Unit tests are important since they help you understand provided solutions better and prevent regressions. I mean, this is pretty boring stuff that you already know. It's just even more important now. This process can still be very hit or miss, depending on your domain, your codebase, and your patterns. So you have to be quick to pull the plug if it's not working. There's no point wasting time begging RNG to work this time. It's just the nature of AI tools. I would put writing code in this way about here on the should you use AI scale. I think this is why I've always been extremely underwhelmed by AI tools. Based on the promises, I immediately try to use it for these less consistent workflows. But this is more like a slot machine than anything else. There are much bigger wins at the lower end of the scale, and I can use the extra time to solve the difficult problems better. AI makes some tasks more efficient, and it's easy to extrapolate that and assume that it makes all tasks more efficient. If it can complete a demo much faster than a developer, why shouldn't it also be better at making production-grade applications? But there's a reason that despite everyone using AI, complex projects are not seeing that productivity boost. The trick to using AI effectively is understanding which tasks it does well and offloading low-priority tasks so that you can do more. So I'm done buying into the headlines one way or another. I'm going to be realistic about what AI can do consistently and when the lack of consistency just makes it not worth it. And this is the last video I'll do talking specifically about AI. I'm sick of reading about it, I'm sick of thinking about it. I just love software and I want to keep working on my craft. If you're interested in some software engineering videos that aren't about AI, please consider subscribing. And thanks for watching.